Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Maimuna Akhtar from School of Pharmaceutical Education and Research. Here we are to discuss about a module protein fluorescence. That means fluorescence from proteins from paper atomic spectroscopy. In this module we'll learn about the fluorescent properties of proteins, the amino acids which are responsible for it, their properties, the effect of the solvent or different environment on the emission properties of these amino acids, the excitation polarization spectra of tyrosine and tryptophan, factors which affect the phenomena of the emission of these amino acids like solvent. We also will learn about tyrosinate emission in absence of the tryptophan protein, the factors determining emission from the tryptophan residues, protein structure and tryptophan emission, quenching of tryptophan residues in protein and tryptophan analogs. We'll also discuss about genetically inserted amino acid analogs and challenge of protein fluorescence. So coming to introduction of the topic, we know that biochemical applications are based on fluorescence. That means large number of biological applications are based on fluorescence, which use this intrinsic protein fluorescence. Proteins are unique in displaying useful intrinsic fluorescence. The important thing is that nature has developed or designed these proteins in such a way that we can use their specific characteristic properties. Like lipid membranes and saccharides are also essentially non-fluorescent. Therefore, you can actually differentiate the functioning of the proteins, and you can study the functioning of the proteins by using this characteristic of protein. The intrinsic fluorescence of DNA is too weak and it is not useful for any kind of determination. In proteins, we have three amino acids, phenylalanine, tyrosine, and tryptophan, which are fluorescent in nature. These three amino acids are rare. These three amino acids are relatively rare in proteins. So that means the nature has designed these proteins having something very important in them. So tryptophan, which is the dominant intrinsic fluorophore, is generally present at about 1 mole% in proteins. So you can see the quantity less that it is present in proteins. The small number of tryptophan residue is probably the result of the metabolic expense of its synthesis. A protein may possess just 1 or 2 tryptophan residues, and the highest can be 10 to 11. It facilitates the interpretation of the spectral data. If all 20 amino acids were fluorescent, then protein emission would be more complex. But thank God we don't see such a kind of phenomena. Only 3 amino acids show fluorescence. And among the 3 amino acids, tryptophan is the dominant one. And tryptophan is also the one which is highly sensitive to local environment. We see conformational transition, subunit association, substrate binding, or denaturation all result in change in the emission spectra of the tryptophan. So that means you can study a variety of function of biological system by simply studying the tryptophan emission. Tyrosine and tryptophan display high anisotropies. That is, they are very sensitive to protein conformation. So in a way, you can study conformation of proteins by studying tryptophan and tyrosine emission. And it is also that tryptophan, where tryptophan is not present, you can use tyrosine emission. Tryptophan is also uniquely sensitive to collisional quenching, which may be due to a tendency of excited state indole to donate electrons. This tryptophan can be quenched by externally added quenchers also, and by nearby groups within the protein. So this also helps in studying the tryptophan properties and properties of the related amino acids and systems. There are numerous reports on the use of emission spectroscopy and quenching of tryptophan residues in proteins to study protein structure and function. Spectral properties of the aromatic amino acids. We have discussed in our previous modules related to fluorophores that proteins contain 3 amino acid residues that contribute to their ultraviolet fluorescence. The absorbance and the emission of proteins is dominated by tryptophan, phenylalanine, tyrosine at 350 nanometers, 282 nanometers, and 303 nanometers. Phenylalanine showing the emission at the shortest wavelength. Phenylalanine displays shortest wavelength absorption and emission wavelength. The emission of tyrosine in water occurs at 303 nanometers and is relatively insensitive to solvent polarity. The emission maxima of tryptophan in water occurs near 350 nanometers and is highly dependent upon polarity and or local environment in comparison to the tyrosine. The emission of protein is dominated by tryptophan, which absorbs at the longest wavelength and displays the largest extinction coefficient. The energy absorbed by phenylalanine and tyrosine is often transferred to tryptophan residue in the same protein. Protein fluorescence is generally excited at the absorption maxima near 280 nanometers or at longer wavelength. Consequently, fluorescence of phenylalanine is not excited in most experiments. As we already know, the emission of the phenylalanine is at 282. On right hand side, you can see the spectra of all the 3 amino acids. The red curve shows the absorption spectra, whereas blue is the emission spectra of the aromatic amino acids at pH 7, that is aqueous neutral pH at aqueous solution. The first one is the phenylalanine, the second is the tyrosine, and third one is the tryptophan. The excitation polarization spectra of tyrosine and tryptophan. The emission maxima of tryptophan is highly sensitive to the local environment, but tyrosine emission maxima is rather insensitive to its local environment. That means pH of the system, aqueous nature, lipophilic nature, presence of other elements, they affect tryptophan but not the tyrosine emission. Therefore, tryptophan is uniquely complex fluorophore with 2 nearby isoenergetic transitions, whereas tyrosine appears to occur from a single electronic state. This slide shows you the emission and excitation anisotropy spectra of tyrosine and tryptophan. The excitation spectrum and excitation anisotropy spectra of N-acetyl L-tyrosinamide is shown on the left-hand side. The fluorescence anisotropies 0 were measured in mixture of 70% propylene glycol with 30% buffer at minus 62 degrees centigrade. The emission was observed at 302 nanometers. The excitation anisotropy spectra of tryptophan in propylene glycol at minus 50 degrees centigrade is shown on the right-hand side, and the anisotropy resolved spectra of the La and Lb is shown in the dotted form and dashed form. The lowest electronic transition of tyrosine with absorption from 260 to 290 is due to the 1Lb transition oriented across the phenol ring. The 1La transition is the origin of the strong absorption below 250 nanometers. The anisotropy of the tyrosine decreases for shorter wavelength excitation and becomes negative below 240 nanometers. The emission and excitation anisotropy spectra of tyrosine and tryptophan also provides very important information. The anisotropy of tyrosine is relatively constant across the long wavelength absorption band, that is between 260 to 290 nanometers. Most fluorophores display some increase in anisotropy as the excitation wavelength increases across and regarded as single transition. The anisotropy of tryptophan is constant across the long wavelength absorption band. The anisotropy decreases to a minimum at 290 nanometers and increases at excitation wavelengths from 280 to 250 nanometers. This complex behavior is due to presence of 2 electronic transition states of the indole nucleus, that is 1La and 1Lb, in the last absorption band. The solvent effect on tryptophan emission. We already know that tryptophan is very sensitive to the environment. So in order to understand protein fluorescence, it is important to understand how the emission from tryptophan is affected by its local environment. This also gives you an idea about the environment of the protein in general. The emission spectrum is strongly dependent on the solvent protein. The emission spectrum is strongly dependent on solvent polarity in case of tryptophan. Depending upon the solvent, emission can occur from the lower or the higher state, but emission from the higher state is infrequent. This is because the emission of tryptophan is sensitive to hydrogen bonding to the immuno group. So in a way, stabilizing the molecule, therefore no excitation. The electric field due to the protein or the solvent reaction field may also influence the emission spectrum of the indole of the tryptophan. Here we can see the effect of different solvents on the tryptophan emission spectra. The different solvent sensitivities of the two different states of the indole is shown in the absorption spectra in the cyclohexanol mixture. In pure hexanol, cyclohexanol, in the mixture of cyclohexanol methanol in the ratio of 0, 1, 5 and 100% of ethanol is reflected in the graph on the right hand side. In pure cyclohexane, that is in the absence of hydrogen bonding, because in non-polar solvents no hydrogen bonding is possible. The emission is structured. It's very uniform and seems to be mirror image of the absorption spectra of 1Lb. In presence of hydrogen bonding solvent, for example ethanol where hydrogen bonding is possible, polar solvents, the structured emission is lost and the emission is mirror of the 1La transition. So we can see in pure hexanol, which is shown by the blue color hexanol, and you can see it matches the excitation anisotropy spectra of tryptophan, which is shown on the left hand side of the graph. So right hand shows you the graph of the tryptophan in pure hexanol, where you can see 0 written on the top of the blue graph. 1 is mixture with the ethanol, 1%, then which is green, the yellow or you can say brown, which is 5% ethanol, and then 100% ethanol. So when it is only in cyclohexane, you can see a structure has not been affected, it does not change. Whereas in case only small amount of ethanol is added, the hydrogen bonding results in the loss of the structure of the spectra. These structured and unstructured emission spectra indicate the possibility of emission from either the 1La or 1Lb. The 1La state is more solvent sensitive than 1Lb. Therefore, 1La transition shift to lower energies in polar solvents. In case of tyrosine, excited state ionization can be studied. Tyrosine displays a simple anisotropy spectrum, but it is important to recognize the possibility of excited state ionization. Since we know tyrosine is not affected by the emission, or we can say rather emission of the tyrosine is not affected by the local environment. So it is important to recognize the possibility of excited state ionization, however, to understand the tyrosine emission. So excited state ionization occurs because the pK of the phenolic group decreases from 10.3 in ground state to about 4 in excited state. So for example, in this figure, tyrosine hydroxyl group is ionized in the ground state. Tyrosine emission can also be observed at neutral pH in presence of a base that can interact with the excited state of the tyrosine. This figure shows you tyrosine emission from protein. The tyrosinate emission has been reported from number of proteins that lack tryptophan residue. Now and then that tryptophan is the primary amino acid that is responsible for fluorescence in proteins and has the dominant fluorescence in proteins. But when in case the tryptophan is absent, tyrosine is the most reliable source for studying of the proteins. So tyrosinate emission has been reported for number of proteins that lack tryptophan residue. So crambin contains 2 tyrosine residues that emit from the unionized state. Purothionines are toxic cation proteins from wheat. Alpha 1 and beta 1 Purothianines have molecular weights nearly 5000 Dalton and don't contain tryptophan. So their study can be done by using the tyrosine emission. The emission spectrum of beta purothianine is almost completely due to the ionized tyrosinate residue, and the emission from alpha-1 purothianine shows emission from both tyrosine and tyrosinate. That means ionized and ionized form. The emission from cytotoxin 2 when excited at 275 nanometers shows contribution from both the ionized and unionized form of the tyrosine. From three proteins, the tyrosinate emission is thought to form in the excited state, but may be facilitated by nearby proton acceptor side chains. The general features of protein fluorescence include that most proteins contain multiple tryptophan residues and they contribute unequally to the total emission. That means if a tryptophan is at periphery, its emission will be different than when a tryptophan molecule is in the vicinity, in the depth of the protein molecule. The emission maxima and quantum yield of tryptophan can vary greatly between proteins. Denaturation of proteins result in similar emission spectra and quantum yield of the misfold proteins. Some tryptophan residues are completely quenched in a multiple tryptophan protein and thus don't contribute to the measured lifetime and the emission maxima. That's the reason why fluorescent fractions would display a longer lifetime than expected from the quantum yield. There are various factors that determine the emission from tryptophan residue. One is quenching by prototransfer from nearby charged amino groups. That means there is proton transfer from nearby charged amino groups. Quenching by electron acceptors such as protonated carboxylic groups. Electron transfer quenching by disulfides and amides. The emission from tryptophan can also be affected by electron transfer quenching by peptide bonds in the protein backbone. Resonance energy transfer among the tryptophan residues also affect its emission spectra. The variability in the quantum yields and lifetime of proteins is due to number of interactions, all of which depend on the details of the protein. The tryptophan emission is also affected by the protein structure. The numerous protein structures are known, and it is now becoming possible to correlate the environment around the tryptophan residues with their spectral properties. For example, human antithrombin responds to heparin with a 200 to 300 fold increase in the rate of inhibition of clotting factor XA. Wild type AT contains 4 tryptophan residues. The contribution of each tryptophan to the total emission was determined indirectly using mutants, with a single tryptophan being substituted with the phenylalanine. That means you are taking a mutant wherein out of 4 molecules of tryptophan in a protein, one is replaced by phenylalanine and emission is recorded. Then that one is replaced back and the second one is replaced by phenylalanine and emission is recorded. And similarly, third tryptophan molecule is removed and in place phenylalanine is placed and second one is placed back, and again the emission is recorded. In a way, you see effect of each of the tryptophan on the total emission of the protein. So hence each mutant protein contains 3 tryptophan residues at a time. The most exposed residue, tryptophan 49, was the longest wavelength emission maxima, and the most buried residue was tryptophan at 225 position, and that has the most blue shift emission. So you can see the effect of tryptophan environment on the emission spectra. So in first case, you see the structured spectra of the tryptophan, which is very normal to the tryptophan. Second, it has slightly changed. Third, it's completely gone. And the fourth, it is absolutely not existing there. Quenching of tryptophan residues in proteins can be due to various reasons. One of the quenching method is collision quenching of proteins. It is used to determine the extent of tryptophan exposure to the aqueous phase. That means it is used for determination of the tryptophan, whether it's on the surface or within the protein. So collision quenching essentially a contact phenomena, so that the fluorophore and quencher needs to be in molecular contact for quenching to occur. Two types of quenching are there. One, it is buried, that if the tryptophan residue is buried inside the protein and quenching is not expected to occur. Second is it is on surface, that means if the tryptophan residue is on the protein surface, in that case the quenching is expected. Let's consider an example of apoxyrin ED. It has two tryptophan residues, one surface residue and one buried residue. The emission spectra of this protein along with those of its single tryptophan variants has been studied. This slide shows you the effect, or you can say the presence of effect of structure on the tryptophan emission. So in case the tryptophan is on the surface, what kind of emission will be possible, and in case of the tryptophan is buried inside, what is the emission of the tryptophan. Since this can be done by quenching studies, which we also discuss in some modules, and this has been studied by collision quenching of both the buried and the surface accessible tryptophan residues. The left hand side shows you the buried tryptophan, whereas right hand side shows the surface tryptophan, and in both you can see the difference. In first case, the intensity, the minus Q and positive Q are equal. Fluorescence intensity is equal, whereas in case of the tryptophan W2, it is there is difference between the two intensities. Tryptophan analogues have also been used for study of the proteins and as such for the tryptophan emission. For calmodulin and other tyrosine containing proteins, the genetically inserted tryptophan residue can serve as a useful probe. It is useful to have tryptophan analog that could be observed in the presence of the tryptophan containing proteins. So it can be explained and it can be accomplished using tryptophan or amino acid analog that absorbs at longer wavelength than tryptophan. So tryptophan analogs have also been used to study the effect of or you can say the phenomena of fluorescence from tryptophan in proteins. These analogs must be inserted into the protein sequence in order to accomplish the study. This can be done in three ways. One, the entire protein can be synthesized de novo. That means you actually synthesize the protein with the analog of tryptophan in your mind, and approach is limited to small peptides and proteins that will fold spontaneously after synthesis. Or second, it can be incorporated into proteins that are grown in bacteria or cell-free system, and that can be done by using tryptophan auxotropes, which cannot synthesize their own tryptophan. The amino acid analog is chemically attached to the tRNA, which is then added to sample during protein synthesis. A modification of genetic code and protein synthetic machinery can also be done to include new amino acids. A group of tryptophan analogs have been synthesized and incorporated into proteins using tryptophan auxotropes. These analogs were designed to retain a size close to tryptophan itself. The spectral properties of 5-HW and 7-AW are different from tryptophan. However, but they resemble or they can be used as a tryptophan. Another useful tryptophan analog is 4-fluorotyrosine. Genetically can be amino acid analogs inserted in several amino acids and their spectral properties can be studied. For several years, a new method came into existence which shows incorporation of non-natural amino acids into proteins. This is accomplished by identifying a unique tRNA and amino-acyl tRNA synthesis that acts independently of other tRNAs and other enzymes, thereby giving birth, or you can say synthesis, to some different amino acid analogues. So these are the example of some amino acid analogues that are inserted using genetic engineering technology. But studying that protein fluorescence is not simple. There are some challenges. One of the challenge is intrinsic fluorescence, or proteins that represent a complex emission spectra. So at initial level, one has to deal with multiple fluorophores with overlapping absorption emission spectra. Because if a protein contains, for example, both tyrosine and tryptophan, you can have a mixture of the emission spectra. So presence of multiple fluorophores itself is a significant challenge. You can have emission from both tryptophan as well as the tyrosine. So you need to have a system which can actually isolate the emission from the two. The dominant fluorophore tryptophan displays complex spectral properties due to presence of two overlapping electronic states. This is uniquely sensitive to variety of quenchers and which may be of help in identifying the fluorescence due to particular amino acid. Now students, let's summarize what we have learned in this module. In this module, we learned about the fluorescent properties of proteins, the amino acids that are responsible for the fluorescence of the proteins, the excitation polarization spectra of tyrosine and tryptophan, various factors that affect the phenomena of the fluorescence of the tryptophan and tyrosine, like solvent effect, especially on solvent effect on tryptophan emission spectra. We also learned about the tyrosinate emission from proteins and factors determining emission from tryptophan residue. Protein structure and tryptophan emission were also discussed, that how the protein structure affects the emission from the tryptophan. Quenching of tryptophan residue in proteins, tryptophan analog, use of tryptophan analogs, genetically inserted in amino acid analogs, and various challenges in protein fluorescence were also briefly discussed. Thank you.